After that update, we'll move on to Railings, a credit union place. Councillor Trenholm?
Okay, this is my last one, okay. But again, this is something that's been talked about. I guess coming fresh off going door to door, there's lots of issues that were brought to me. This one I know has been brought to council before, so I know, and I think it was April of this year. And before that, I think it was 2018 or 19. And maybe before that, I don't know, but I know it was at least then. And I know there was a recommendation that we bring it back to staff in terms of staff being able to provide, I think maybe, I don't know, do some research, I guess, maybe on quotes or something to that effect to see what could be done. And so I just, I'll prelude just asking for any update from staff on that issue, just with, when you're told that just like this, it's almost like we planned this conversation, Councillor Cameron, that whenever you're having the strategic plan come out, but anyway, I think there's a lot of individuals, more than we know, that have fallen, that have had a concussion, that have had black eyes, that have had swollen noses, because that's what I've heard. So I guess I'll pass it over to see if there's any update or who would like to. I guess I got a couple lights on, so I'll let everybody talk.
Yeah, there is a little bit of an update. In fairness to the staff out there, I think when we last spoke about it, one of the ideas was maybe putting in at least 2, which would open up a couple hundred, 200 or 300 more seats. Sorry, I'm having trouble with my throat, but anyway. And before I start into that, I just want to make it perfectly clear once again, and we've done this numerous times, that the facility as it sits today exceeds all expectations as far as seating available to handicapped people or people that struggle to get to their seats, because you can sit in every seat in the top row, and I believe they can get you to the bottom row against the glass, just about every seat too, with a little bit of help. And when there's any events there, there's quite a volunteer staff that are there that are available to walk people to their seats. But anyway, having said that, the staff did I got a drawing done for a couple of sections, and then sent it out to, it didn't go to tender or anything, but I believe it just for proposals, and got asked for prices. They only received one price, and probably in the nicest way I can say this, it was the price. I really don't want to do the work.
Here's a price.
But here's what I would do it for, because I don't want to do it. So to me, it was quite extreme, because in one of the conversations I believe I had with Director J.P. DeRozier, and Gordon can answer this stuff a lot better, but I believe he could spend maybe up to $10,000 without coming to council. There's a limit, and I don't know what it is.
I think I can approve up to 50, but when we went out for pricing, the expectation was that we thought it would likely come in at about $12,000 to $15,000 to
Yeah.
do 2 sections.
And we were going to go ahead and do it. That was the plan. But the price that they got was nowhere as close to $10,000 or $15,000. So I don't want to put a price on safety. That's not what I'm trying to do. But it was at that particular, and actually he thought, well, maybe they misunderstood what we were looking for, and they priced, half the stairways in the arena, or all of them, as opposed to 2. But no, it was 2. So that's where that went. It had probably not a lot done since then. I'm quite sure that, I'd like to think that I'm quite sure that, we could knock that price down somehow. And so it's still, I'm 100% all in and wanting to do some. I don't know if I want to do it all. But if we're going to sit here and talk about health and safety and people, it's also important to remember that there may also be an issue with, once we put those railings on those stairways, we're impeding egress to also leave the building. It no longer meets code. So we have to be quite careful in what we're doing and how we're doing it. So that's a little update as I know it. I'm sure if JP was here, he could speak to it a lot more. And it was also my understanding back in April or wherever we had those meetings that I think the majority of people here want it at council, have no issue with putting in the railings. And I think, in my personal belief from listening to the conversations at that time, that we've probably reached the point that, yes, there should be railings in there. But at what price? And so I'm sure they'll continue to work on it and look at it. And I know that doesn't answer much of your stuff tonight, but there's no question. And like I say, I live with a person that struggles on stairs, and I happen to have a few friends now that are a little older than I am, and have had them comment about going to Caps games or events and concerts, especially when it's a little dark and stuff, and there's no question that some of them struggle with the stairs. So it's an ongoing issue. It hasn't been thrown away or anything like that. They continue to work on it, and hopefully, before too long, we'll have some kind of answer or resolve that'll make everybody happy. That's the way I understand it.
We did talk about this before, and I know several times, but I know when people have brought it to me, I've explained to them, and a lot didn't know, and I didn't know until JP and staff explained it to me, that you can get, like you mentioned, to the lower, if you want to sit by the glass, you can get there. You just need to ask a staff member to take you down the side ramp, and then you come through, and then you can go like as low, then you're down at the bottom, and you can be as low as you want. But I'm wondering, should we do some kind of a public, like, you know, we do the nice little videos when they do the ice, and there's a big uptake on that about like different things, how the cup runs and what the staff do. So I'm wondering if we could do something on that, how the staff, you know, if you approach the staff, how they could escort the person to that, like just a little comms bit, and then until prices get reasonable or whatever.
And they have, I think they have staff right there that could do
Yeah.
that probably. They're
Yeah.
pretty good at that stuff. So
Yeah.
that's a good idea, and
Yeah.
it could probably quite easily be done for, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So can we request that we maybe work on something like that for, especially we're in hockey season, we have lots of grandparents and, you know, people that like to, I don't have to say grandparents because, you know, it could be me that can't climb the stairs tomorrow, so, just people that like to be at the cup and watch their family members and stuff, so maybe we could do it sooner than later.
Yeah, just sort of an afterthought. I just recall when we brought this up a couple of times ago, JP or Gordon could probably speak better as to how this relates to accessibility, but I know it was mentioned that in a lot of other arenas, Charlottetown being one of them, when you enter the arena itself, you enter on the bottom and you have to travel up in order to get to accessible areas, whereas at our facility, the entrances are all at the top of the bowl, which makes it, this is where I sort of would rely on Gordon or JP to sort of tell us how it relates to being accessible. But if you enter on the top, it's better because you don't have to travel to those accessible areas. You enter on the accessible level. That's sort of the capacity at which I can recall that conversation going, but I know it was sort of a unique feature to our facility at the time, whereas a lot of the other ones,
Yeah.
you enter on the ground level.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely correct, and just maybe building on Councilor Morrison's comments, you know, this discussion has taken place at council many times over the last number of years. The building was certainly designed with accessibility in the forefront, and has won, I believe, the city has won awards for the design of the building. But the accessibility was certainly top of mind. Whether or not it was a mistake not to have railings is certainly a subjective discussion. There are arenas all throughout North America that have railings, and there's arenas that don't. And it doesn't seem to be some rhyme or reason to that. Yeah, and we do, as Councilor Morrison pointed out, the number of fully accessible seats along the top of the bowl, the number is somewhere around 500, I believe. So the other consideration that we've, the ability for patrons to egress, if there was an emergency, is certainly an issue in the building code, with regards to adding railings after the fact, that weren't part of the original design. Yeah.
Thank you, Your Worship. I certainly appreciate everybody's comments. I think they're all very valid points that people are making. I remember the gentleman that sent the information in. I remember talking to him at the College of Piping, and the person he was with had difficulty in mobility. And I think, yes, there is a cost. There is, with the egress, we have to be very aware of those kinds of things. But I think the one point that we need to arch over everything that we're saying is, and I will say it as a senior, because a lot of times it's people that are losing that mobility, it's losing their independence. It's losing their dignity to be independent. And I think sometimes that has no price. That's too much. I realize that we have to look at it in budgets and be realistic, and I think people sometimes will not ask those questions because they don't want to be embarrassed. They don't want to be centered out, but I think it's incumbent upon us as a council that we represent all ages and all people from all walks of life, health and mobility. And I think if there is a cost, if there's anything to explore that we can make something happen, that it doesn't put the accessibility of the building at risk, but it invites people to remain active as long as they can, then I think that it is something that we really need to try and make that work if at all possible.
Thank you, Councillor. I think so. I think this is the fourth time we've spoken about railings at the Cup, and as I understand, the current council direction is for staff to explore options to install 2 railings, which would open up 4 sections for greater accessibility for members of our community. To Councillor Morrison's point, I think there was an initial discussion with potential contractors, and those bids the costing came back, you can correct me, but at the $70,000 area. What we may need to do is, one, showcase some of the opportunities and seating availability for individuals with accessibility issues. But to the second is not give up on the fact that because we got one person submitted an overpriced bid or that seemed outside the scope of what we would expect that cost to be, to just give up and walk away on it. So perhaps through if council's looking to give direction to staff to do some social media to highlight some of the accessible seating opportunities. That may also be the opportunity to also include the fact that council is looking for the installation of 2 railings, and would certainly be open to having discussion from further contractors. It may be that we have to get to a situation in budget where we tender with a minimum pricing. But I'd certainly agree with all of Councillor McColman's points there at the end, that it is and really, I don't think we've changed direction. I think we've come a long way. The other councillor, I'll come back to you, but I just wanted to touch on 2 things too as well. That the building at the time was built to code. That previous council had explored this issue and had a report done by engineering consultants that identified that installation of certain types of railings would actually make the facility less safe. So I don't think it is a mistake. Council certainly at the time needed to receive that and follow that advice. And council here has looked at, are there opportunities to make a couple of adjustments? So, Councillor Morrison, I'll pass back to you.
Just wanted to touch on the fact too that, who knows, in a building like that, and depending on everything that happens on there, we could get real lucky and maybe talk to a fabricator that's in that type of business, that maybe we could work out a deal where they could put in 2 or 3 or 4 railings, and we could trade it for some kind of service in kind with them, or a name somewhere, or advertisement. Anyway, that's all I had to say.
So, Councillor Trenholm, is that a good update for you?
It is, but I would definitely really encourage if we could set a timeline, I guess, in terms of sometime in the future being able to do that. But we may not be there today, but if we could, as opposed to, this is not an issue we probably want to keep on revisiting, right? If we have a deadline, timelines, I mean, those are great things to have, so I'd be in favor of that.
Okay, well, maybe we can do the public relation piece and then also look at maybe using that to get some more attention, and council can put that on as a budget item for those 2 railings.